you can do. There is definitely stuff you can do. And what the signs are to know that you may not have a good appraiser coming at you. I'll get to that. Now, we're going to record this, so okay, I'm going to start like in a minute here. We're going to record this, so what we're going to do is please, just hold the questions to the end, okay? Because it's going to be on Facebook, on Facebook Live, and it's going to be in our CAL training and all that kind of stuff. And the best way to do it is go straight through. You guys get the benefit of asking whatever questions after. Other people won't be able to get that, but at least they'll have this whole class straight through. Okay, so
you tell me when you're ready, Tim, and I'll just pull it up.
I'll be ready.
Hold on. Come on, connect.
Am I good if I go right here to click? Am I still good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Just give me one moment.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, Victor knows that salad. That salad is good. It's so good.
All right, hold on just 1 second. We're about to go live.
All right.
So I'm just double checking for you, like that my phone's turned off, right? Since you're
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Right. Nothing worse. You get the rain and. Okay. Welcome to the class today. It's appraisals and what can I do to help? Meaning, what you can do as a broker to help the cause when you're during a transaction. Okay. So when meeting the appraiser at your listing. All right. Go to page 2 here. All right. You've sold the property. That's what the whole the idea is here. And then you are the listing agent in this particular transaction, and then you're receiving that call from the appraiser. Okay, that's the first step. You've sold the property, everything's going, your process has gone through, you're to the point where you're waiting for the appraiser to call, he or she calls. Make certain that you have listed your name, email address, and cell phone number appropriately on the listing sheet so the appraiser may contact you with minimal effort on his or her part. When you do receive the call, be very polite and courteous and try to accommodate the appraiser with a reasonable time frame to meet at the subject property. When I say, I don't know that I necessarily mean the listing sheet, on the contract, okay, make sure, remember who wrote the contract. The buyer agent wrote the contract, right? Okay, so there are many times, and I get on you guys, if you guys call me and I tell, make sure that you fill that contract out from beginning to end, okay? All 13 pages need to be fully filled out, and especially page 13, okay? This is where the appraiser gets the information. The lender, remember how this process works. The lender sends it to the appraiser then gets a copy of the contract, and on that contract, it states the agents, both sides, right? The buyer and the seller. Many buyer agents don't bother to fill out the seller information. Very common, okay? So it's actually your responsibility on the seller side. They fill out the contract. You have every right to finish, put your information in there. If the buyer agent didn't do it, please do that, because what's the appraiser then going to do if he or she only has the one side? They're going to call the buying agent. What is that? Monumental waste of time. Okay? Because buyer agent doesn't have keys, unless it's a dual agency or whatever, but typically the buyer agent doesn't have the key, and the buyer agent says what? Call the listing agent. Oh, I didn't have their number. You have it, whatever. Point being, what happens is you're wasting people's time. What an appraiser, for those of you who know, I am an appraiser, and I've appraised, for financing, for 35 years I've been doing this. I don't do it anymore for lending institutions. I don't like lending institutions, okay? But I won't, so the bottom line is, what an appraiser generally does is just put it to the side. It's got 15 other files, okay? Now you've just lost time in your process, okay? And you're wondering why it didn't go, or what's happening, and why isn't this going forward in the method that you think it should be. Well, it was your fault, okay? Buyer agent, yes, but seller agent too. You could have filled it in. You had every right to fill in a portion of the contract, okay? That's the first step. Okay, when you do receive this call, make sure, some of you guys, I mean, hey, I call you guys, whatever, I'm not saying to people in this room, you got no voicemail. It just goes nowhere. Are you kidding me? Okay, if you want to be a real estate broker, you have to have a voicemail that's open to receive voicemail, okay? It should be, you should answer your phone, but if you don't, I mean, there certainly should be a voicemail, okay? Talk to the appraiser, set up a reasonable time. Normally, this is a very important part of the process because, right, without this, your deal's not happening, okay? Nothing happens without financing. If it's a cash deal, great, wonderful, then you don't have to worry about this. But if there's financing involved, the appraiser, unfortunately, is everything to you. It's the only way you're going to get this deal closed if the appraiser sees it the way you see it, and according to the way the contract is written, the buyer saw it, right? Otherwise, the deal doesn't happen. Okay, lender has to buy into it too, of course, the underwriters, but bottom line is getting the appraiser, who's supposedly the expert on it, to get it to the next step here. Okay, so be accommodatable, if you will, whatever, accommodate the appraiser, be reasonable. He's not going to ask you to see stuff at 3 in the morning or anything like that, but I would make every effort to say yes to whatever they say. Hey, I'll meet you tomorrow at 10, because trust me, unless you're a huge broker, their time is boom, 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 boom. They're all set up, and they need to set up, and they say, I need you at 10 o'clock. They kind of need you there at 10 o'clock. Okay? What to ask the appraiser on the initial call. Okay? I have selected some current listings and current comparables for the subject property. May I please share them with you at the inspection? Okay, this is a good idea to ask. This serves a couple purposes. I can tell you straight out, if this appraiser is not so keen to this type of simple, nice question and the way you worded it, you got a bad appraiser. And I can tell you that before you even meet. Okay? No, I don't need your stuff. I don't have to be rude, but whatever. No, I don't need any of your stuff. Thanks anyway. Whatever. When they're doing that, that's not a good sign, and I can tell you that right away. There's no open-mindedness. He or she knows everything, and that's just not good. Okay? That is really a bad sign. Doesn't mean it won't appraise or anything like that. It's just, but if you have one of those properties that this might be a tough appraisal, this probably isn't going to go well. Okay? Because I will always be receptive. Now, I'll grant you, I usually use it for, shits and giggles, because it's usually bad stuff that you guys are providing to me. But point being, sometimes it is good, and I will always look at it, and I will always be receptive to it, because I want to. Sometimes there is a comp or two, perhaps, that I didn't know, didn't see, I don't know how, but if it can happen, maybe it happened. Okay? That's okay. So most appraisers will respond with a resounding sure. I hope that's the case. If they do not want any help, like I said, this is a sign you may be in trouble with a particular deal. I would bring them anyways to the inspection. So even if it's no, I would bring your comps, we'll get into the other stuff, to the event and offer them again in person. Once again, in a nice way. I mean, this is unfortunately the person that you want to acquiesce to. And don't start offering money and things like that. That's not a good idea. But point being, you should be, you want to be nice and accommodating throughout the process. Okay, choosing the proper comparables. When choosing the comparables to utilize for the appraisal, remember, they are not necessarily the ones you chose when you originally priced out the subject property. I mean, that's what you should have done when you did the listing. I mean, this is part of your process. If enough time has elapsed, it depends how long it took you to sell, you may have to choose new comparable closed properties and certainly new comparable listings, okay? So some of those listings may have sold and whatever. That might be the perfect comp now because it actually sold and closed, okay? The all-important comparable sold should be within 12 months of today's date, within a mile of the subject property, same style of property, and a similar room count above grade. When I say above grade, that's first, second floor, to the third, not counting basement, okay? Make sure you take out those basement rooms. It's a separate entity. Semantics, but it's a separate entity. Now, they are counted in the MLS, but don't count them, take them out when you're comparing, if you want to truly compare apples to apples, okay? Choosing them. Ages should be similar. So if you're building, if it's a bungalow in the 1920s, you should be looking at bungalows from the 20s. You should be looking at a ranch in the 60s. Not the same house. Might have the same utility. They're not the same. Two flat that looks like a two flat two flat that looks like a house, they're not the same, okay? Even though they're both two flats. Should be in the same school district. Doesn't necessarily applicable necessarily in the city. Big deal in burbs, okay? Huge, everything. Everything is about schools in the suburbs, okay? Similar types of construction type, okay? Once again, the bungalow to ranch. Similar utility, but they're not the same house, okay? Even though many brokers list them as the same. A lot of brokers just say bungalow. It's a ranch, okay? Does everyone know what the difference between a bungalow? I'll just throw this to the side. The bungalow is the old, 1916. They started them in like 1915, 1916, up until about the 30s. And it basically, it's a shotgun bungalow, but a brick bungalow with the little cyclops on the top, right? And the only difference between a bungalow and an expanded bungalow is that little dormer on the top. It's finished. They're finished up top. That's expanded. If it's just a one story, it's just a bungalow. Expanded bungalow. That's all. If the subject property is a condominium unit, all the above criteria is similar, but in addition, look for the unit to be within the same building, within the same complex, if not necessarily the same building, but sometimes there's 5 buildings. They're all the same. They were built by the same builder at the same time and all that. That's okay. Building would be best. And with similar amenities. If they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with whatever, if some have the granite because they've been updated. The other ones were built in the 60s. They didn't quite have that. But the ones that have been updated are clearly selling for a higher number. So you want to compare apples to apples. They still may be, similar. It's the same unit per se, but it doesn't have the same amenities. Okay. The comparable listing should fit all the same criteria as the comparable sold, but can be actual listings, under contract listings, or pending listings. These listings are also very important to the appraiser because they are required in any appraisal that is being done for loan purposes. Okay, so not only in a typical appraisal, we need a minimum of 3 solds, okay, and 2 listings, listing pending, AI, contingent, whatever it is. Okay. So ideally, pull that. That's what he or she needs. That's what I would need if I'm going in there as an appraiser. Okay? You might as well try to help them with anything. The hardest thing these days is what? The listings, right? Sometimes, especially in the city, there aren't a whole lot of listings anymore. Okay? It's tough. And as we're getting into this market that's about to happen soon, if the weather ever breaks, we will get, more properties on the market, but they're going to go fast, and it's not going to be simple to get actives. The hardest part, that I found in the last many years of doing appraising was actives. Frankly, you can find solds. I mean, they're there. They may not be great, but they're there. Okay, but it's very difficult sometimes to get listings. But that's what we need to complete the appraisal. Minimum of 3 sales, and then 2 actual listings, active, pending, something like that. They can still qualify. Okay. Now, it could be 5 or 6. If you have 5 or 6 good comparable solds, that's fine. Okay? Supply those. Okay? We get into segues right into number of comparables supplied to appraiser. Appraiser to the appraiser for now, under contract listing requires at least 3 comps, sold properties, and a minimum of 2 comparable actives, like I said, for loan purposes. It's a good idea to supply more of each, if available, to ensure that the appraiser gets a complete understanding of the marketplace you're trying to show that your listing sold it. 5 sold comparables, that's very common on an appraisal that we do. There'll be 5, okay? They kind of want that. They don't, unless there's really not a whole lot there, 3 will suffice because that's all that's required. But 5 is pretty common. I've seen 7. I put 7, 8, 9 in there, okay? If it's there, okay? And 3 active comparable loans would be ideal to supply to appraisal if possible. Okay, if you can only get the 2, hey, I've had times where I only do 1. But then I'll go outside, I'll literally go outside of that 8 block, because in the city you're talking about 1 mile, 8 blocks, okay? Remember that 8 block, 8 blocks is a mile, okay? And you want to adhere to that. Sometimes if you have to go outside of that, I would say the only time you should ever go outside of that, not on solds, but maybe on actives. Why? Because there's nothing else. I mean, you just don't have an option. That would be the only reason why you would do that, okay? Because otherwise, you're stretching. No underwriter is going to buy it. No lending institution is going to buy this. It doesn't work, okay? You can always tell I also said as a review appraiser and whatnot, you can always tell when people are reaching for values, okay, and not doing the job properly. Okay, the range or dollar amount of comparable properties. A perfect appraisal consists of one lower value comparable property, one higher value comparable property, and one pretty much straight on to the value. If we're trying to get to 250, a perfect appraisal, in appraiser world would be one of those is about 250, one sold for about 248, and one sold for 253. Okay, that's pretty dang close, and where you want to be, and those are good comparables, assuming that they're all comparable. If there are more than 3 properties that support the market value of the subject, they should also be utilized and indicated in your appraisal packet for the appraiser. In addition, do not fear giving out a lower than the sale price comparable property appraisal. See, a lot of brokers, this is where where many of you brokers really fail, is everyone is higher. Well, then what's my first question as the appraiser? If everyone's higher, you're a bad realtor. Because what did you do? You undersold it. You blew it. Okay, right? So, not smart. Okay? Just be truthful. Everyone can't be better than the subject, because if they were, it would have sold higher. Okay? So, just give the right comps. As appraisers, I'm not going to say we all know what we're doing, but you're supposed to know what you're doing. Okay? It's okay to do that. In addition, do not, fear, okay, they actually need this for the appraisal, and they'll look at you, the broker, as more credible if you do so. Okay, so if you're giving the correct comps, like, heck, if the one right next door, sold for, I don't know, 10 grand less, same house, but maybe it didn't have the upgrades quite so much, that's okay. This is the same house, okay? You have a kitchen that was redone, you have the bathroom, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with the house next door, happen to be the same one, it's okay. The listing comparables, on the other hand, should ideally be higher price than the actual sale price of the subject property, right? That makes sense, I would hope. Because if you're going to list it, it should be a little bit higher, or at least at the price, because if it's lower, what's the first thing the lender's saying then? Oh, what's going on here? I don't want to lend on a property that's 250 when you can't find an active listing 250 or more, right? There's a problem here. So you got to look at that as well. Where is the market going, in other words? And they fear that, the lenders and underwriters. Okay. This will indicate that the subject property is truly worth the value that is currently selling for. In other words, the list price should ideally be a small percentage higher than the actual sale price of the subject property. Ideally. I mean, it doesn't have to, but that's what it normally means. I understand in the real world that all of these perfect comparables do not always exist, but this is ideally what you're trying to find and deliver to the appraiser upon the arrival for the appraiser. Okay, so this is what you're looking for to supply in a little packet of comps, and then this is how you should put it together, something like what I just said. And like a lot of this, like if it's sold within 2 weeks, then probably the work that you did to get you to that listing probably will suffice, because you should have already done this job. You were looking at her comps, you were showing the seller how come it's worth this value, why we're going to list it at this price, so most of your work should be there. Now, if it took 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months to sell, well, obviously you have to redo your initial work because things have changed. The market has clearly changed on you, and you need to get it current. Other items to give to the appraiser. Every appraisal also requires a floor plan. We have to draw a floor plan for the appraisal, okay? All right, if you have one that's part of a listing packet, you should supply it, okay? They have sources, there are different companies that do this now. Greatest thing you should put it in every listing. I don't even care the price of your listing anymore. I used to say, maybe $250 and more. You should do it for every listing, okay? Every appraiser needs it. They cost anywhere from $100 to $150, to do that, from some of these services. And it's exactly what we need, okay? We need a plat survey, we'll talk about that, legal description. Even on a condo, if you have this available, you should supply it. Okay, so we need a legal, a plat if it's a single family. You probably won't get the plat if it's a condo, but plats do exist in condos, and a lot of people don't believe that they do. Okay, and then the actual floor plan of the property, okay? Once again, there are services that do this, and that is something that you really should do as a broker. It's a great idea, okay? So every appraisal desires a plat survey if you've gathered this from the homeowner. The first question I ask, remember, I do come from an appraiser background, but you know what? If you want to know something about the property, the two things that I do, realist.com gives you every piece of information you ever wanted on a property. It's the first thing you should do. I don't care what you're doing on the selling, the buying side, whatever, you pull that up in Realist, okay? Next thing you ask when you're on a listing side is, do you have the plat? Everything's on the plat. Everything you want is on the plat. Realist and the plat have every piece of information that you ever want. You hardly have any questions to ask them, other than what have you done to update this property? No questions. Everything's answered. It's all for you. You don't need anything else. So do it. Get the plat. A lot of people, I don't have the plat. Whatever. Tell them where it is. It's in their closing papers. Okay. It might be at your attorney's office, but most likely, I usually end up in their closing papers and I find it. Okay, for them, because they don't know how to. Okay, they usually pull it out. We do this all the time. Okay, with them, let me go look, whatever. Some of them are all over it. They know. Many do not, especially the longer they've lived in these properties. Okay, but when they look it up, they got it. It's there. Okay, and it's very important to you to have, because it's important for the appraiser after that. So you should make a copy of all this stuff. Okay, so if you have this document, the appraiser will love you for it. Mainly for a single-family residence, for having a plat. Because that's all your dimensions of the lot. Whether the city, it's usually pretty easy, 25 or 30 by 125, whatever. But they could be different. And then you've got the building dimensions, which is what we need. On a single family, you're talking about square footage is calculated on exterior dimensions. Okay, if you're talking about condominium, it's wall to wall. Okay, because you don't own the exterior walls. Okay, so that's something you measure. Okay, but the bottom line is if there's a floor plan that was provided that you had made through one of the companies, well, that stuff's right in there. Okay, so that's helpful. Okay. Very helpful to the appraiser and helpful to your process. Other items. All the items given should be clear copies of each of the listings, comparable sales, floor plan, legal description, and plat of survey. Okay. Once again, if you come to this and you give this to the appraiser, I'm telling you, if there's any chance for your appraisal, this to go through, it's going through. Okay. Now, if it's just an impossibility because it's really tough appraisal and it's how you got to this value, it's really difficult. Okay, well, that's another story. But you've done a massively good thing if you can get all this stuff to this appraiser. Okay, and I for one, I'm ecstatic when I get this in front of me. It's helped me a lot, to do. Okay, if you have the time and the experience, you can put adjustments on the comparable properties to indicate the pluses and minuses. Why this? Like for example, when I said the property next door sold for 10 grand less. Okay. It didn't have the updated bath, plus 6 grand, updated this, whatever, 4 grand, new roof, whatever. Boom, there's the 10 grand. And you just equated, you did comparables like an appraisal, but as a broker, and that's okay. I would do it right on the listing sheet next to it. And indicate the adjusted market value of these properties as compared to the subject property, okay? I have gone so far, once again, because I am an appraiser, I've done the appraisal for the appraiser coming in, okay? Literally, you go, here you go, have a nice day. I had one actually use it. He actually used the exact same appraisal because I saw it later. I go, man, that looked really familiar. Okay, he did it on his own stuff, but whatever, literally took my exact comps, everything that I had. Now, it was perfect. I know it was because I did it, okay? So the problem, there was no issue, and whether he or she checked it, I don't know. I would hope so, for their sake. I would never take anybody's word. There's like 2 people I trust. My brother, because I trained him, and there's one other guy. He's the only, as far as value and trusting on appraisal. They don't trust anybody because they know they don't do it the same way. I went over today with someone, someone in this class, how to do, comps and all that kind of stuff. And the bottom line is, I just don't trust anybody. I want to do it myself. I want to find out, and I can tell you how to do it, but don't do any of the other methods because they don't work until you do it the right way, like the CMAs and all these things. It doesn't work. You got to do it, kind of the way I showed. I was showing Mike how to do it, and that's the only way you really truly get the correct value. What to say to the appraiser at the appointment? Simply give the appraiser your packet of goodies, you call it a packet of goodies, that you've prepared for them, and let the appraiser walk the property on their own. You can ask, you want me to go through, but most of the time, I know where every room is. I don't need to, I can look from the outside, I know where every single room is and what they are. I don't need anything else. Okay, and you could walk with me, that's fine, but I don't necessarily need that, so ask them. you know, fine. If there are some significant features that are not mentioned in the listing or you believe simply need to be emphasized, indicate these features to the appraiser at this juncture, okay? So certain things that, you know, let's say it's a highly upgraded property, got all sorts of cool things in there. I'm going to one for one of our agents, as a matter of fact, he wants it for his cellar in Orland Park. This thing is like $4 million, okay? It's got features. I was there once because he wanted me to help evaluate. Now he wants me to actually do an appraisal on it, okay? Now this thing's got features beyond what you could ever, and any appraiser, and you know, whatever, I've already gone through it with it once, but I'm gonna do it again. Yes, you would probably want to, because this wood is from, you know, from the jungles of, you know, Bangladesh, you know, whatever. Everything had a story and a reason for being there, okay? That's not typical, but I mean, it happens, and there's where you would need, and you should walk through with the appraiser to describe all these things, and you should know it as well. He's probably the best, one of the best brokers I've ever met. He's one of our brokers, and man, he knows, he doesn't live there. You would think he owned it, okay? He knows every detail of that house from the end, and that's how you should be. I don't care what house you're selling. You know, you should know it that well as he knows the stuff. Because, you know, now it hasn't sold, that's because it was over listed at first, but, you know, I think we'll maybe get it down to the right number. Then please ask the appraiser to address any questions that they may have for you at the time, okay? Just, you know, simply, hey, any other questions, any way I can help? You know, that's all you're there for. Supply all the little packet of goodies, show them and explain all the different things, why this house's value is what it is versus what else is out there in the marketplace. And when the appraiser is finished with their inspection, make sure that you have their contact information, just in case anything comes up that you can help them with. Make that clear. I always, very beginning of a transaction, I always make sure to the lender, if there's anything that I can do, and the attorney involved, I always make it clear that you please call me, I can help you, I'll have it with you, for you, whatever piece of information you need within 24 hours, and I can guarantee that. I don't care what it is. Okay, I can do it, and I will. Okay, certainly with the appraisal here, that is exactly what do you need. Now, I've been in situations when I can see this property, for example, as an appraiser, is not appraising up. The first thing I do, once again, this is a mark of a good appraiser, is call the agent. Help me help you. I do not want to underappraise this property. That's not what I want to do. Show me why this is worth this number. I'm not seeing it. I don't have the comps. You know, show me something. Okay. Most of the time I don't get an answer because I've done my research, okay, and there's nothing more there. But hey, sometimes there is. You know, it's happened. Okay, after the appraisal appointment, make sure that you contact the lending institution, loan officer, 7 days from the inspection date to ensure that your sale price actually came in as the appraised market value of your property that you're trying to close on, okay? So typically that appraisal will be in about 7 days, you know, somewhere around that. You know, that's when at least you should start checking, okay, to find out what's going on. Could have came in 3 days, could have came in 4, whatever it is. Within a week, you should start getting some action. Hey, how'd the appraisal come out? You know, oh, perfect, you're good to go. Beautiful. That's all. And that should be, once again, that should have been established at the very beginning with the lender. You know, the appraiser, that's a different thing. But the lender, you know, you might not necessarily get to talk to the appraiser again, and that's okay. You know, unless there's a problem, then it's a different story. This is crucial. Do not let time elapse without checking in the appraised value of the property. The last issue on whether or not your property closes typically is the appraisal value. The rest of the stuff after that is just kind of gravy. They're just putting together all the rest of the loan docs and everything else. But that appraisal is everything. The rest is, you know, they might have to get your, you know, one more document, you know, from the seller, you know, from the buyer or whatever, you know, stuff like that. But this is the important piece of information that they need. So it is ultra important to ensure that everything is okay with the market value. Like, you don't care if it came over, and certainly you care if it came under, because that's, now you get issues, okay? But as long as it came to market value and the lender tells you so, you are good to go. Now, if the appraisal value doesn't match sale price, okay, this is when we get into some issues, okay? If the appraised market value comes in over the sale price, all is good for your deal. Now, someone in another class, you know, said, you know, why does the appraised value always come exactly to the sale price? Okay, well, I'll be honest with you, there is a reason for that, okay? all these problems that have happened in the industry over the last, 12, 13 years, whatever it is, had a lot to do with appraising stuff and whatnot. Okay, I'll always appraise stuff over value. I have no problem. I appraise it for what it's worth. I don't care. Okay, but I'm more apt to do at value more these days if I'm going to do it, mainly because you don't want to rock the boat either way. They question you either way. If I come 1,000 over the value, well, what do you mean? What do I mean? I mean it's worth 148, not 147 that it's sold for. That's just my opinion of value. That's what it is. Now you have a problem if you appraise it at 146, because now you're undervalued, and that could throw loan to value the whole thing off. So if the appraised market value comes in lower in the sale price, well, it's not good for your deal. It is now likely that the loan to value ratio will be affected, and is now an underwriting issue. It becomes everybody's issue involved with the transaction. Okay, the probable first phone call should be to the client and let them know the issue. Okay, so you represent the seller here, and you've just found out, that the buyer, they're the ones that paid for the appraisal, their loan isn't coming in. Whatever that number is, it's not coming in. It's more and more of a problem. We get a lot of the agents, you guys coming to me saying, Rick, what do I do? This thing came in at 145 and we sold it 152. Hey, yeah, you got a problem. There's no question. 3 options. Utilize the appraised value as a new sale price and proceed to close. Okay, this is usually between the attorneys. Well, more important, the parties. Buyer and seller have to come, acquiesce to this, but via usually the attorneys involved. Okay. Negotiate from the difference of the appraised value to the sale price and try to come to a resolve in this manner, oftentimes splitting the difference. Okay, let's say it's $6,000 difference. Okay, oftentimes what happens, okay, you know what, I'll meet you in the middle here, but what does that mean to the buyer now? He's got to probably come up with three grand more, okay, and bring it to the close, because now loan to value, assuming, let's just go 80-20. Okay, well now it's not 80-20 anymore. The 20% down doesn't work. So they're going to have to bring whatever that number is. If it was a $6 grand difference and now it's 3, you're going to have to bring 3 to the table, more than they thought they were going to bring. Okay, so an issue. Sometimes it's not an option because they don't have 3 more thousand. Okay, you never know. Fight the appraised value with additional data supplied by the brokers involved in the deal. I can help you with this. Okay, this is where I can help. Okay, I know how to fight the process. I've had people come, back at me, say, oh, this is value, it's not, Okay, and then I prove that they were wrong, of course. Okay, but that is what the process, and you can do that. Okay, it's not a simple process, but it's one that can be done. It can be fought. The problem with appraisals, okay, is they follow you. The only way you get, FHA and HUD, they're what, 6 months, I believe it is. I think they follow you for 6 months. Conventional still follows you, except just go to another lender. Okay, you can get away from it in conventional. Just okay, we're done with you. We're moving on to another lender, and now you get a whole new appraisal. The appraisal in that respect does not follow you, but it does with that lending institution. Like you can't just say I want a new appraiser. It doesn't work that way. Okay, it's got to be fought through that appraiser, and he or she must see the light. It doesn't happen very often. Well, it can. I mean, if you show them the stuff, it can help. It can work. Okay. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but I know they have to acknowledge it and write it. So if you do it the right way and you ask the right questions, you can get this thing done and at least get an answer as to why, whatever. Overview of this session. Always meet with the appraiser as a listing agent, always be there, okay? Bring at least 3, preferably 5 comparable sale properties to the appraisal inspection. Bring at least 2, preferably 3 listing properties to the appraisal inspection. Once again, those can be pending, contingent, or active. Okay, those can all qualify as that because they're still we don't know the sale price. Okay. Bring a copy of the floor plan of the subject property if you have one. Okay. Bring a copy of the legal description of the subject property if you have one. Okay. Bring a copy of the plan of survey of the subject if you have one. Now that that takes care of 2. That's illegal, and the plat. And it doesn't give you the floor plan, but it gives you at least the exterior. If it's a perfect ranch, 60 by 30, I can draw my own floor plan, but at least I have the dimensions. It's perfect. Okay. Make up the comparable sheets with adjustments if you have the expertise to do so. Okay. Don't do it if you don't know what you're doing. Because then you just only look foolish. But at least supply the comparables. But if you kind of know what you're doing and you know your marketplace and you know how to do this stuff, If you want to ask me, that's not a problem. Allow the appraiser to roam the subject property unencumbered, by you tagging along, okay? Point out any issues that you feel need to be addressed concerning the subject property or the comparables, very succinctly, just, don't belabor points and go overboard. You don't need that or want to hear it. They're usually bang, 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 bang. I got at 10 o'clock, I got to be out of here because I got to be so-and-so at 11 o'clock, okay? So they don't have time for your, banter unless it's really quick. Okay, indicate to the appraiser a manner in which to contact you if there are any issues that should arise after the appraisal inspection. Okay, make sure that whether it be a card, email, whatever, make sure that there's contact. Contact the lending institution loan officers 7 days after the inspection to determine if the appraised value came out at least to the sale price of the subject property. Okay, that is appraisals and what you can do to help.